Actually, I wanted to be a pilot, but then eventually I found myself as a marketeer. Why? Because as I continue going to school, I realized that I'm actually passionate about behavior, understanding behavior, influencing behaviors. And I realized along the way that marketing is one of those disciplines that help you not only to understand behaviors, but to also impact them, behavior change. When I finished and I wanted to start as a marketeer, I remember vividly this advice of my mentors, and I want to say thank you to them, by the way. One of them told me, if you want to be one of the best marketeers of Africa, as you are aspiring to be, probably best to start with an advertising agency. Why? Because there you really get to touch the different elements of the marketing mix, from the research all the way to producing and seeing the advert itself, to all the way to understanding the impact of that advertisement on people. So I started my career with Ogilvy. Those days it was called Ogilvy and Matter. I spent almost 4 or 5 years with them, being a client account executive, where I was in between what people like Unilever, Coca-Cola wanted and what actually the creatives were making. So yeah, that's how I started my career. And of course I joined after Unilever, where I spent 17 years. Fantastic experience. I actually started as an assistant brand manager. And then, with a lot of work, a lot of support, but also a lot of luck, I found myself exiting the marketing function as a senior regional marketing director. But I moved from assistant brand manager quickly to brand manager. And those days, I remember we were fighting. When you're a brand manager, you want to have the best brand, you want to have the biggest budget, and then you want to be the one that people talk about, as well as put the best advertising campaign out there. So it was really fun. So in those, with that 17 years as a marketeer, I was also very lucky to not only work on food, but work on home care, work on personal care. And I tell you, as marketeers, sometimes really open doors. You're thrown opportunities that if you're open to, things that you have never dreamed of in your life. I had never dreamed of being able to work in countries like Senegal, Ethiopia, South Africa, Kenya, even Ghana. But that's what marketing does to you. If you're open and curious enough as a marketeer, and you embrace challenges, it can take you places. So really being exposed to different type of markets, being exposed to a different profile of consumers, I think is the beauty of marketing.
We better make a video so that you can be watching every day.
And I'm sure, as we were chatting and preparing this novice, you asked me, so what are some of those memorable things that you can probably talk about? Of course, there's the business side of it. We do marketing because we want to deliver business. So I am super that I've created a sub brand that before I left the company was more than 100 million euros. Out of actually a share market constraint, turned into consumer insight and turned into business opportunity. But what I'm really proud of, because it's still out there, is the launch of no iron fortified bouillon first in Nigeria, because that one went from an idea of sustainability to local sourcing all the way into a big 360 campaign done with big influencers like Omotola, if you remember her. And this became a best practice in Unilever that was exported all the way to Europe and so on and so forth. I'm proud of it because it was a great campaign, but I'm proud of it because it was one of those first steps where businesses were being used or are being used as a force for good. Iron for women of reproductive age, is extremely important and important in our countries. And to make that a daily necessity, built into a daily habit is really, really marketing at its best. So yeah, you're taking me down the memory lane, as we say, but you know, you guys are very lucky to be marketeers, and lucky to be marketeers in today's world. There's you know, I cannot lie to say that as a marketer, I really like the sexy part of it. You know, the part where all the thinking you've done is translated into a beautiful piece of advertising. I can't lie but to say that this, when you look at it, yeah, you know, but that's the most visible part of it, right? So the thinking, all of it is beautiful, but when you finish and you see the tangible result, and I can tell you, for example, when I look at Finance American, where the team has done all the thinking, and you just look at the artwork and you go, wow, you know, how do you bring this food that draws you into itself? By the same token, when you look at a beautiful creative piece of advertising, you go, wow. And this is the most visible part of marketing. So listen, we all like success. I like those elements, but of course, you know, it has to be backed up by results and solid thinking. I would say in today's world, it used to be a pain for me when we used to call it the consumer journey, where you really have to, we were forced in those days. I don't know whether you guys do it today, forced to go and spend 2 or 3 nights with the consumers to understand them. So we spend nights in places that, you know, you think to yourself, oh, really, is this still part of the job? And so where you go in places because you just want to understand the consumers. I think sometimes we were pushing the pack a little bit. No, I have a couple of those ones. You know, one early in my career, and I think some of these things really build you as a human being and builds you as a professional. I was handling a brand that, you know, for 4 years was losing ground to a very sharp and creative and strong challenger, and it really forces me to you know, to be humble, but to really try to understand, you know, how do you create a strong brand, how do you gain market share, and so on and so forth. You know, it was a low moment because every day I had to justify the performance of the brand. Every day I had to justify why we're losing equity and so on and so forth. And you know, as a brand manager, you know, you don't want to be the one who's always, you know, center stage for the wrong reasons. So I would say, yeah, that's been one of the lowest moments. Other lowest moments for me in the career as a marketeer was all about, you know, trying to convince senior leaders of obvious market opportunities. You know, and I'm sure I'm going to regret this because I can imagine the brand managers and the marketing managers sitting there and say, but this is exactly what you're doing, Yeo. And I know it can be so frustrating when you think, gosh, why can't he just see the opportunity? And I think, you know, sometimes it gets frustrating, but also when you manage to flip that and get the person to see the opportunity you're seeing, it's also, it becomes a bright moment. Go slow because of all the beautiful craftsmanship that went behind it. And honestly, Novizi, this is one of my preferred brands because of thinking, because also of what it carries, you know, as a brand. But if you say, okay, don't be political, think outside of Fan Milk and Danone, I would say probably Woodin, because I find it as a brand, it has character, you know, and it's expressed that character in a design, you know, it has character. I would say definitely Pepsodent or Signal in the equivalent in French. And then I would say my perfume brand.